Min-jun, 34 years old, is the CEO of the tech giant Infinity Tech, a company valued at billions. He is the embodiment of success. An impeccable suit, a meticulously planned routine, and an office at the top of a skyscraper in Seoul with a panoramic view of the city. Despite his unshakable demeanor, employees have nicknamed him the Ice King. Min-jun tolerates no mistakes and is known for treating people with clinical coldness. In his luxurious penthouse, silence reigns. Although married, Min-jun seems to live alone. He comes home late from work to find a reheated meal waiting on the table. His expression doesn't show satisfaction, nor does it reveal sadness, only emptiness. Meanwhile, Seo Yoon-hee, 30 years old, spends her nights staring out the window of the small studio she's turned into her ceramic workshop. She is a ceramic artist who gave up many of her dreams when she married Min-jun. Her initial hope of building a life together has been replaced by a routine of solitude. In the past, they were deeply in love, a love that blossomed unexpectedly when Yoon-hee saved Min-jun from a minor accident, and he, grateful, began to get to know her better. But now, that sweet and curious man has disappeared, replaced by an obsessive and emotionally distant businessman. When he comes home late that night, Yoon-hee greets him with a tired smile. "You worked late again? I left your food in the microwave." Min-jun only mutters a thank you without making eye contact. He doesn't notice the sadness in her eyes as he retreats to the bedroom. The next morning, Min-jun's routine is interrupted. On the way to an important meeting, he decides to drive himself, despite his team's protests. On the road, at a dangerous curve, the car skids due to heavy rain. The impact is violent, and Min-jun is rushed unconscious to the hospital. When Yoon-hee receives the call, she rushes to the hospital. There, she finds Min-jun unconscious in the ICU. Her heart aches seeing him so vulnerable, something he never allowed himself to show. The doctor calls her aside for a private conversation. "Your husband suffered a head injury. He's out of danger, but the trauma caused retrograde amnesia. He doesn't remember events from the past 5 years. Yoon-hee struggles to grasp the severity of the situation. The past 5 years include their marriage. He doesn't remember me?" she asks, tears streaming down her face. The doctor shakes his head empathetically. "No. To him, those years are a blank." When Min-jun finally wakes up, Yoon-hee is by his bedside, holding his hand. He slowly opens his eyes and looks at her. For a moment, she thinks he recognizes her, but then he speaks in a confused voice. "Who are you?" Yoon-hee feels as if the ground has disappeared beneath her feet. Her mind races to process his words, but she forces a smile and calmly responds. "I am Seo Yoon-hee." Min-jun furrows his brow, clearly suspicious. "Why were you holding my hand? Are you a nurse?" Yoon-hee realizes she can't tell him the whole truth just yet. He is still fragile and vulnerable. "No, I was just taking care of you." Back at home, Yoon-hee feels the loneliness more intensely than ever. Her husband, who is already emotionally distant, now literally doesn't recognize her. She recalls the doctor's advice. Don't push him to remember. Let him rediscover things at his own pace. With tears streaming down her face, she makes a difficult decision. I'll make him fall in love with me again, even if it's from scratch. Meanwhile, Min-jun begins to notice that something about his life feels strange. He doesn't understand why he lives in such a grand penthouse or why people around him treat him with such reverence. When he sees the name Seo Yoon-hee on documents at home, he begins to wonder who she really is. When Yoon-hee arrives at the penthouse that evening, the tension in the air is palpable. Min-jun is seated on the couch, flipping through a photo album he found in a drawer. He studies pictures of the two of them smiling in various moments. Parties, trips, even simple moments like cooking together in the kitchen. But none of it sparks a memory. He slams the album shut and looks at her with eyes full of questions. "Are you really my wife?" he asks, his voice heavy with doubt. Yoon-hee takes a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Yes, we've been married for 3 years. You had an accident. It's normal that your memories haven't come back all at once." "Then why doesn't it feel like we're married?" Min-jun retorts, gesturing at the surroundings. "There's nothing here that makes me feel like you live with me. Not even our photos were out in the open." Those words cut Yoon-hee deeply, but she tries not to show it. She knows his coldness isn't his fault, but the result of years of emotional distance. Maybe because you've always been very private. But I'm here. I'll help you with whatever you need. Minjun watches her for a moment, uncertain how to feel. He doesn't know her, but something about her presence soothes him, even if he doesn't want to admit it. In the following days, Yoon-hee makes every effort to ease Minjun's transition. She helps him navigate his company dynamics, organizes meetings with his team, and most importantly, tries to create lighthearted moments that might spark a connection between them. "You always liked this coffee," she says one day, handing him a cup with foamed milk and a hand-drawn design. Um, I used to make this for you on Sunday mornings." He looks at the heart design in the foam, surprised by her gesture. "Thank you," he says, and for the first time his tone sounds genuine. But progress is slow. Minjun, used to being in control, feels vulnerable and frustrated by his lack of control over his own memory. During a company meeting, he struggles to handle a major project, and his subordinates notice his insecurity. When he returns home, he collapses onto the couch, exhausted. Yoon-hee approaches him cautiously. "Do you want to talk about what happened today?" "Talking won't change anything," he replies bitterly. "It feels like I'm living someone else's life." Yoon-hee feels his pain as if it were her own. "I know it's hard, but you're not alone. I'm here to help you." Minjun looks at her, and for a moment his eyes reveal something beyond distrust. Vulnerability. "Why do you do this? If I'm as empty as these photos make me out to be, why do you even care?" Yoon-hee hesitates. She could tell him the truth, that she loves him deeply despite everything, but she knows he needs to discover that on his own. "Because I believe in you." That night, as Minjun sleeps, Yoon-hee watches him. He looks so calm, so unlike the cold and distant man she once knew. She wonders if this is the moment to start over from scratch. But the challenges keep coming. At work, Minjun discovers decisions he made in the past that don't align with his current character. He also starts to suspect that Yoon-hee is hiding something, as she avoids answering direct questions about their past. One rainy morning, he decides to confront her. "I need to know," he says, crossing his arms. "No, why do I get the feeling you're hiding something from me?" Yoon-hee feels a chill but answers carefully. "I'm not hiding anything. I just don't want you to feel pressured." He narrows his eyes, suspicious. "Then why does it feel like something is missing?" Yoon-hee almost loses her composure but decides to shift the focus to ease the tension. "Maybe you're missing yourself. Sometimes the answers we're looking for are inside us, not in the past." Her answer makes Minjun reflect, but his doubts remain. He feels torn. On one hand, he's growing increasingly curious about Yoon-hee, but on the other, he fears he may never fully trust her. Days go by, and Minjun begins to grow accustomed to Yoon-hee's presence in his life, even though his amnesia still leaves him unsettled. He watches her during quiet moments. The way she carefully arranges her ceramic tools in her makeshift studio, her soft smile as she prepares tea, and even the way she seems to instinctively know every detail of his routine. These small actions spark a warmth inside him he can't quite explain. One evening, while reviewing documents in his home office, he notices Yoon-hee sitting on the balcony, shaping a piece of clay. The setting sun bathes her face in golden light, and for a moment he forgets his frustration with his lost memory. Something inside him softens. "What are you making?" he asks, approaching her with genuine curiosity. Yoon-hee looks up, surprised but pleased. "I'm working on a vase. You used to say you liked the ones I made." Minjun leans in to watch her work. Her agile fingers mold the clay with precision, but her expression holds a tenderness he finds mesmerizing. "I said that?" He smiles faintly, surprised at himself. "It seems my taste hasn't changed." She laughs softly, and the sound fills the space between them. "Maybe there are still parts of you that haven't been lost." The conversation is brief, but it leaves a mark on both of them. For Yoon-hee, it's the first time in a long while that she feels a real connection with the man she loves. For Minjun, it's as if a piece of his life's puzzle has fallen into place. The next morning, Yoon-hee decides to take him to a special place, a small cafe tucked away in a quiet alley in Seoul. It's where they had their first official date. She doesn't reveal this, hoping to see how he reacts. "Why here?" he asks, examining the cozy ambiance. "I thought you might like it." Sitting at a table, they share pastries and talk about trivial things. Minjun starts to open up, explaining how challenging it has been to lead the company without the memories that built his reputation as a genius. Yoon-hee listens intently, offering words of encouragement. "Even without your memories, you're still the man who built all of this," she says earnestly. "Maybe the real Minjun isn't who you remember, but who you are now." He looks at her, feeling a lump in his throat. There's something about the way she supports him that stirs an emotion he can't name. Yoon-hee continues to reach out to him through small, thoughtful gestures. She takes him to a park where they used to walk on their days off. They visit a gallery where Yoon-hee once exhibited her art. And Min-jun, unknowingly, praises a piece he had purchased for her years ago. One evening, they decide to cook together. Yoon-hee suggests a simple recipe, but chaos quickly takes over the kitchen. Min-jun, used to controlling everything, gets frustrated by the lack of organization. "Shouldn't you measure this before mixing?" he asks, pointing at the ingredients. "The fun is in improvising," she replies with a smile. They end up laughing at their mistakes with flour scattered everywhere. It's a moment of lightness Yoon-hee never thought she'd share with him again. As he wipes her face clean, Min-jun feels a wave of something that resembles happiness. But the turning point comes when Min-jun decides to accompany Yoon-hee to her studio for the first time. He watches silently as she guides a group of children through a pottery class, her voice gentle and patient. One small girl, clearly nervous, accidentally breaks her work. Yoon-hee kneels beside her, holding her hands firmly. "Don't worry," she says with a smile. "We can start again. That's how we learn." Seeing this, Min-jun feels something unexpected. It's not just admiration, but a profound feeling of wanting to protect and be close to her. After the class, he approaches her, initially at a loss for words. "You're incredible," he says finally, his eyes fixed on hers. "Me?" Yoon-hee laughs, surprised. "I didn't do anything special." "Yes, you did. You have patience, kindness. Things I lack," he admits. She looks at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, but still smiling. "Maybe you're underestimating yourself. I see those qualities in you every day, even if you don't." Min-jun begins to let down the walls he had built around himself. He doesn't fully understand what he's feeling, but he knows Yoon-hee has become an essential part of his life. The discomfort and distrust he felt initially are replaced by a growing curiosity and, finally, a desire to be closer to her. One evening, he invites her to watch a movie with him. Yoon-hee, surprised, accepts. Sitting on the couch, they share a bowl of popcorn, laughing at a romantic comedy. For the first time in years, she feels genuinely connected to him. When the movie ends, Min-jun looks at her with an expression she hasn't seen since the early days of their relationship. "Yoon-hee, I don't know who I was before, but I feel like, for some reason, being near you is the only thing that makes sense now." Yoon-hee's heart races. She wants to believe his words, but she's afraid they're just a product of his vulnerability. Still, she smiles and replies, "Maybe you're starting to truly know me." Min-jun begins to feel like he's rediscovering a new version of himself alongside Yoon-hee. He can't deny how much he's drawn to her warm presence and the way she turns even the simplest moments into something special. However, just as their bond seems to be growing stronger, shadows of the past start to emerge, threatening the fragile reconnection they've built. One quiet afternoon, Min-jun finds a locked drawer in his office. Driven by curiosity, he uses a key he finds in his desk. Inside, he discovers a stack of documents, letters, and a sealed envelope with Yoon-hee's name written on it in his handwriting. When he opens it, he finds a prenuptial agreement. The cold, impersonal language of the document shocks him. A clause specifies that in the event of a divorce, Yoon-hee would receive only a small sum, and the marriage was to be kept free of emotional interference. Confused and shaken, he confronts Yoon-hee that very evening. "Did you know about this?" he asks, throwing the contract onto the table. She picks up the paper, her expression immediately darkening. "Yes, I knew." "Then why did you agree to it?" Min-jun demands, his voice filled with incredulity. Who signs something like this? This doesn't feel like a marriage. It feels like a business deal. Yoonhee's hands tremble slightly, but she steadies herself. I agreed to it because I believed you were more than this, Minjun. I thought this contract didn't matter compared to what we felt. And now? He asks, staring directly at her. Was our marriage really just this? A hollow agreement? Yoonhee can't hold back her tears, but remains firm. Our marriage was real to me. I loved you. Even when you started to drift away. Even when it felt like your work was more important than us. Those words leave Minjun speechless. Though his memory is blank, the pain in Yoonhee's eyes is undeniable. He leaves the house to clear his head, unable to process the storm of emotions inside him. In the following days, Minjun begins to investigate more about his past. He speaks with colleagues, old friends, and even his mother, who doesn't have a close relationship with him. Each conversation reveals a version of Minjun that he barely recognizes, ambitious, controlling, and unwilling to let anyone truly get close. You've always been like this, Minjun, his mother says during a tense dinner. Cold, reserved. I'm not surprised you drafted a ridiculous contract like that for your wife. Why do you think I was like that? He asks, desperate to understand his motivations. She sighs, avoiding his gaze. Maybe you learned it from your father. He treated people like pieces on a chessboard too. You never wanted to appear weak, and that made you the man you are today. Her words leave Minjun even more unsettled. He returns home that night with a heavy heart, only to find Yoonhee packing a suitcase. What are you doing? He asks, alarmed. She looks at him, her face marked with sadness. Maybe you're right. Maybe our marriage was never what it should have been. I don't want to force you into anything, Minjun. If you can't trust me, maybe it's better if I leave. The thought of losing her triggers an unexpected panic in Minjun. Yoonhee, wait, I don't know who I am right now. But what I do know is that, since I woke up from that accident, you're the only thing that's made me feel alive. She hesitates, her eyes brimming with tears. But is that enough? Because I don't want to be just a reflection of what's missing in you. This conversation creates a painful distance between them. Yoonhee decides to stay, but something between them feels broken. The situation worsens when Ji-soo, an old friend of Yoonhee, re-enters her life. He's warm, understanding, and clearly harbors feelings for her, though he's never admitted it. Minjun notices the way Ji-soo looks at Yoonhee and feels a growing discomfort. Who is he to you? Minjun asks, his tone a mix of jealousy and insecurity after seeing them talk. A friend, she replies firmly. Someone who was there when you weren't. Her words hit Minjun like a blow. He realizes that his past behavior pushed Yoonhee away in ways he never imagined. Determined to understand what happened between them, he digs deeper and uncovers something that changes his perspective entirely. Before their marriage, Yoonhee initially rejected his proposal. Through a conversation with one of Yoonhee's friends, he learns that she only agreed after he insisted, claiming that she was his only chance at experiencing true love. This unexpected detail casts Yoonhee in a new light. When he confronts her again, he asks, "Why did you say yes, even after everything?" She looks at him, tears streaming down her face. Because I believed in you, Minjun. I believed that underneath all that armor, there was someone who needed love. Minjun feels as if the ground has disappeared beneath his feet. He realizes that even if he can't remember the past, the present is right in front of him, and he must decide whether to fight for Yoonhee or let her go. Minjun spends sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, replaying Yoonhee's words in his mind. He feels a mix of regret and fear. Fear of being unable to overcome his past mistakes. Fear of losing the one person who has managed to reach his heart. Determined to find clarity, he decides to confront his own demons and seek the true meaning of the love that once united them. The next morning, he goes to Yoonhee's workshop. Upon entering, he finds her focused on shaping a ceramic piece, her hands delicately molding the clay. The soft sound of music in the background and the aroma of tea filling the space bring a sense of calm he never realized he needed. We need to talk, he says firmly, but without hostility. Yoonhee looks up, surprised but cautious. She dries her hands and sits across from him. About what? About us. About who I was, who I am now, and who I want to become. She listens in silence as he speaks. For the first time, Minjun opens up completely, without barriers. He admits that he was always afraid of letting someone get too close because he saw vulnerability as a weakness. He talks about how work was his escape and how he now realizes he pushed away the people who mattered most. I don't want to be the man who hurt you, Yoon-hee. I don't want you to feel like you have to carry this weight alone. She looks at him, tears slowly running down her cheeks. Minjun, I never wanted you to be perfect. I just wanted you to let me in. And that's what I want now, he replies, his voice low but resolute. I want to start over, but not just for me. For us. Yoon-hee feels her heart tighten. She wants to believe him, but the scars are still fresh. Starting over won't erase what happened, Minjun. Are you ready to deal with that? He surprises her by gently taking her hands. I don't want to erase anything. I want to learn from it. But I need you to give me one more chance. They stare at each other for what feels like an eternity until Yoon-hee finally smiles. A shy but genuine smile. Then let's start over. A few days later, Minjun plans a special gesture. He asks Yoon-hee to meet him at a mysterious location. When she arrives, she realizes he's taken her to the cafe where they had their first date. This time, however, the place is closed to everyone except them. What are we doing here? She asks, confused. Reliving the beginning, he answers, pulling out a chair for her. He recreates that first date with every detail he could uncover. The coffee she ordered, the dessert she liked. As they talk, he asks her questions he never had the courage to ask before. He wants to know her dreams, her passions, and what makes her happy. Yoon-hee feels like she's meeting a new Minjun, someone genuinely interested in understanding her. You're doing well, she jokes, laughing. But next time, remember I like my coffee a little sweeter. Noted, he replies with a smile. Time passes, and Minjun proves his intentions are genuine. He starts balancing his professional and personal life, reserving more time for Yoon-hee, and showing interest in her ceramic work. During an exhibition she organizes, he makes a point of being there, supporting her publicly for the first time. As he watches visitors admire Yoon-hee's pieces, Minjun realizes just how talented and passionate she is about her craft. He approaches her and whispers, I don't think I'll ever forget how amazing you are. Yoon-hee laughs, her eyes sparkling. I'll write that into a contract. What contract? He asks, confused. The contract that says you have to remind me of this at least once a week, she teases. He smiles, but this time it's entirely sincere. I don't need a contract. That's already engraved right here, he says, pointing to his chest. Months later, on a sunny afternoon, Minjun takes Yoon-hee back to the park where they used to walk before their marriage. He surprises her by kneeling down in front of her with a new ring. I don't remember the first time I did this, but I want to do it right this time. Yoon-hee, you taught me what it means to love even when I didn't deserve it. You gave me a second chance, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that it was worth it. Will you marry me? Again. Tears stream down Yoon-hee's face as she answers. Yes, Minjun, 1,000 times yes. In the final scene, we see Minjun and Yoon-hee side by side at an art gallery, admiring a special piece, a ceramic vase Yoon-hee made and titled New Beginning. It looks perfect, Minjun comments. It's not perfect, Yoon-hee replies. It has small imperfections, but those are what make it unique. He smiles, understanding the meaning behind her words. Like us. The camera pans out as the two walk together, hand in hand, ready to face the future with open hearts and a love renewed.